There's hope for my city. We are the chosen ones. We are the light, reflecting His only Son.
All right. Well, welcome to our first episode, first season, first episode of our Hope for My City podcast. And of course, today we're so excited
To have-
Chief Sheryl Victorian of the Waco PD here with us today. Chief, would you just say hello to everybody tuning in?
I just want to take a minute to say hello and thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm excited about our discussion.
Amen. Chief, I consider a good friend as well, and man, just so blessed to have her here to kick this off with us. So, Chief, you've done several, or at least a podcast before here in the city. I know you've done all kind of interviews and things like that, and you also with the Waco PD podcast you got going. There's times where you can get on there and we hear your announcements that they use as an introduction, which is pretty cool. Yes. But for those that may not know about you, would you just share some of your story of where you've been at, and then all the way up until now landing here?
Oh, absolutely. So I am a native Houstonian. Grew up in the city of Houston in a neighborhood called Sunnyside. I never thought I'd be a police officer. In my early stages of my life, I was actually afraid of police officers. Yes, my mom would try to get me to shake the hand of a constable at our local grocery store, and I was 4 or 5 years old, and I would fall out embarrassing her. Wow. And yes, crying, and I just didn't know why, and but I would embarrass her and not shake this guy's hand. I was so afraid. And then a couple of years later, we went out of town and came back in town, and one of my mischievous neighbors told me that the helicopter, the HPD's helicopter, the Houston Police Department's helicopter, landed on our street and was looking for me.
Oh.
Yes. And so, and at the time, the helicopters were really small, 2-seaters, right? And we lived at a T intersection. So it was believable that the helicopter could land, and the flight path was right over my mom's house. So he was like, hey, it landed on the street, and they asked for Sheryl. And I was like, that's me. And he was like, and they asked if she was a Taurus. And I was like, I'm a Taurus, right? Now, mind you, I did not know that the police didn't ask for your sign. But from that point on, my friends and I, every time we heard those blades coming, we would hide behind trees, cars, bushes, you name it, because I thought they were about to land looking for, I don't know why. Right. I hadn't done anything.
Oh my
I was a little mischievous. I may have sold some envelopes and lied about it. But anyway, but I got caught after the first neighbor gave us 5 cents for an envelope, and he called my mom. But anyway, so I was afraid, and then
slanging envelopes.
Hey. For the Red Cross. I don't know what. Oh my gosh. Anyway, let's not even. My brother and my god sisters are probably still shaking their head about that now, because I had them with me. I was the oldest. But anyway, so
hold on. Let's pause real quick on that. How would you feel in both times when you said you were afraid? What were some of the feelings associated with that, and or even with the helicopter, when they were telling that to you?
So just a little anxiety. My family had never had any negative interactions with the police. Mm-hmm. So I really, outside of people saying the police take you to jail, right. I really had no interactions with police officers, right? Okay. And so that's all I knew about police officers. They took you to jail. And right. For some reason, they were looking for me.
Okay.
And so, when I turned 9, my dad passed away, and he had a massive heart attack, and we were burying him out of the city. And so when you're buried outside the city, we get escorts outside of the city. And so when we were leaving the funeral home, the police officers were very compassionate and very empathetic, and my perception began to change slowly. And then when I became a teenager, this show called Miami Vice came out.
Oh,
and
Crockett and Tubbs.
Crockett and Tubbs, the original. Yeah. And I wanted to work undercover. I was going to be Miami Vice. And it was around 14 and 15 that I made up my mind that this is what I wanted to do, right? And I knew that I thought police officers had character, they had integrity, so I knew that there's some things I could do, some things I could not do, some people I could hang with, people that I could not hang with if I wanted to obtain this goal. So I went to college and got out of college and went to the Houston Police Department and was in the academy for 6 months, worked patrol, worked the gang task force. Then I went to major offenders and got to work undercover for 11 years.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Cool. Yeah, absolutely. It was great. Exciting. One of the best times of my career as an officer.
Hold on.
Go ahead.
So with that, and we'll continue.
All right.
But what's a story that you could share?
When I was working
in undercover
in an undercover capacity.
Yeah.
So because a lot of the undercover work that we did, people knew that they were doing wrong. And I didn't do We didn't do narcotics. We did trademark counterfeiting, insurance fraud. I bought and sold guns, unlawful labeling. We did anything nobody else wanted to do. Yeah. That's what major offenders, career criminal squad 1 did, right?
All right,
but one of the things that I think after I've been there 11 years and working undercover for 11 years, I stopped having fun, right? And we started seeing some of the same types of people, and I think my partners and I became a little bit more sensitive to the type of work that we were doing. Okay. And decided I wasn't having fun anymore. Our offenders were getting a little younger. I was getting a little older. Lingo changed, and I decided that it was time for me to move on, right? And so that's really, to be honest, the turning point of me thinking about prevention and intervention. Really was at the end of my undercover career when I realized that there was a extra part of the story when people were breaking the law. Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. So I started maturing as a police officer then. So I left major offenders. Again, I wasn't having fun anymore. Things beginning to change for me, and went to homicide.
Speak to that fun because, we love what we're doing. I mean, it's really neat when we love what we're doing, right? And we have different parts of our phases in our life. Talk to us about how you loving what you do was fun, right? Even though it was dangerous and it was, it's interesting to me because I'm like, man, what if, when we're kids, we will play cops and robbers, or we'll play and looking at Miami Vice, and I remember looking at that and I was like, man, they were dope. They were like, they were cool as heck. I remember watching it, driving in the Lambos and this and that,
wearing their blazers and their blue jeans, and
In fact, when you looked at growing up, looking at Lethal Weapon, those were all like cool, Beverly Hills Cop.
Yes.
And so I'm thinking now out loud is that, man, that's kind of, pretty cool when you look at it like that. And man, what if you're Eddie Murphy? What if you're Crockett or Tubbs? Right. And so I could see how that would be, something that you end up loving to do, and it was fun. So can you kind of speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. I mean, each and every day I got to be somebody that I was not. Right. All right. And put myself in a position of an offender and talk that language and walk that walk, knowing that all the time that I was trying to make a case on them for whatever it is, the information that we had that they were doing to break the law. And it was kind of excited, and I was getting paid to do it. I get to, depending on what type of case it was, I dressed up or dressed down to look the part, right? And I have had an occasion where I was recognized by a classmate before. Oh, yeah. While working undercover, and and it was at the time where we had brick phones then and pagers.
Oh Lord!
Yeah, we had brick phones and pagers, and I was inside doing an undercover investigation, and a guy that I know from high school walked in, and he was like, "Hey, how you doing?" And I was like, "Hey," and he was like, "Don't act like you don't know me." And I said, "I don't." And he was like, "We went to high school together." Man, we went to high school. We played in a band together.
That sounds
we
like
sure
straight out of a
did.
movie.
And I had to go for real. And so I was like, you don't know, I'm from Louisiana. You don't know me. Yeah, right. What's your
With
name?
the attitude
Nikki?
and everything?
Yeah, with
The
an
head
attitude,
rolling
with
and
the head
everything?
rolling
Everything.
and the eyes
too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Some eyes
And
too.
you should have seen my pager going off. We had a signal of the pager, 911, get out of there. Right. So I had to abruptly end that investigation and get out of there. Because my classmate had recognized I hadn't seen him since.
Wow.
But it was fun going to work every day, doing a different type of investigation or long-term investigations where you're trying to, get somebody who has been breaking the law and potentially victimizing others or, So it was exciting. And after doing it for so long, like I said, we had a supervisor change too. And his thoughts on the type of work we were doing and how frequently we were doing it were not the same as my previous supervisor. And so things slowed down tremendously. And I stopped having fun. I wasn't having fun anymore. And decided, hey, I want to do something else. And I'd taken a sergeant's exam. And so I knew I would be promoting. And then a position came up in homicide. And so I applied for homicide. I came out number 1 on the list. I started watching the first 48 hours, and I was going to be homicide and the people, the investigators on first 48.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then got to homicide, and it wasn't exactly what I thought it was.
Right.
Wasn't exactly what I thought it was. However, because I had the proactive investigative skills, and working homicides is really a reactive job. So it requires a different skill set. Because working undercover, typically I usually had on a wire. So when we got ready to arrest offenders, you play the tape. It's hard to deny that that's you, right? And that I was in the conversation with you as a police officer. But when you're talking about homicide investigations, you're speaking for someone that can't speak for themselves. And so people are not trying to go to jail for committing a homicide, right? So you have to have a special set of skills to be able to interview and interrogate people you suspect of committing a murder, right? And so when I got there, wasn't a whole lot of experience on night shift, and they just assume, okay, you got investigative experience, get out of here, right? Here's your card, you go out and investigate crime. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. Just because I have 13, 14 years on the police department doesn't mean that I have a skill set to do this. I want to be the best homicide investigator I can be. Where's the training? So I ended up I bought a basic homicide investigator book. I started reading investigations from previous investigators just to kind of, develop my skill set. And I was kind of disappointed, that there wasn't like really a training program that I was able to go through with more experienced officers in homicide. But nevertheless, I did that for 5.5 months and got my call to promote. And so the timing was perfect. And so I got to say that I was in homicide, investigated 13 cases over the course of that 5.5 months that I was there, which is really, a lot more than what people in smaller cities may investigate, right? So went promoted out of homicide, went back to the streets, worked patrol, worked investigative first responders, where we were able to prepare patrol officers to go into investigations. We taught them to work cases from start to finish, because if you call the police right now, the police officer is going to come to the scene, take the initial investigation, and then that report is going to go to an investigator, right? Well, we were teaching officers, especially when there was an arrest involved, how to work that case from start to finish as a patrol officer, and it kind of prepared them for investigations. I left there and went to child sexual abuse, and I worked in child sexual abuse for about 2.5 years. Got the call to go to internal affairs, and so I worked IAD. Yeah, I worked IAD for 3 years.
So what is that for those that don't know?
Our internal affairs division is the investigative division that investigate policy and procedure violations as well as criminal violations of police officers. So anytime a complaint came in from a citizen outside of, because we had a lot of internal investigations and a lot of external investigations, right? But anytime a serious complaint came in, it goes to IED. And with 5,200 police officers, you have to have a division, with investigators. And so we were actually, as a sergeant, I was a fact finder, which means that I'd get the initial investigation. I'd go out and talk to all the complainants, all the witnesses. I prepare the case file with all the evidence and then pass it on to the lieutenant, who determines if there are policy violations and make recommended citations. So I did that for about a year and a half. And then my last year and a half, I got to work proactive IED, which means we were going after the criminal cops.
Oh, snap.
So,
okay.
yeah.
So I know. So explain the two differences.
Okay. So reactive IED are cases that are coming in either internally or externally.
Okay.
From, if an officer had a serious issue or policy violation involving somebody inside the organization, we'd investigate that. And if a use of force complaint came from somebody outside of the organization, we'd investigate that. So, with 5,200 police officers, with everybody probably starting their career with good intentions, during the course of your career, you can become corrupt, whether it's people offering you money under the table or, you find yourself in financial situations because we go out and buy a lot of cars and big houses and boats and, and not really prepare ourselves financially for what's happening, right?
Exactly.
And you get caught up. And so there was a need for a proactive investigation into officers who were accused of committing criminal activity. Yeah. So you'd have to go do surveillance on your own officers. Wow. Make cases on your own officers, do integrity checks.
Yes.
And now it was not just random, right? We didn't just go randomly pick on an officer and say, oh, yeah, we want to go to Southeast and pick on Officer Jones tonight. No. We had to have received information that the officer had been involved in criminal activity before we started investigations. We just didn't do random integrity checks. If we got information that, an officer may have been stealing dope or money from suspects, right? Oh, wow. Then we may have to go out undercover and put ourselves in a position to be stopped by that officer, and we'd have dope or money, and to see if that officer really was taking advantage of people out on the street. So we did that, had an opportunity to put several officers' handcuffs on them.
Really?
Put their own handcuffs on them. And
their own handcuffs.
And being an IED, initially being an IED, it's not a place where people want to go because it has a reputation, right? But then I had a gentleman come up to me because I was trying to run. I was not trying to go to internal affairs. And and so
okay, hold on. So tell me about that.
So I'll tell you about that.
Yeah.
So I'm in child sexual abuse. I'm having a great time in child sexual. I have the best squad. I have the most experienced officers that are on these task force, right? Only thing I really have to do is review their work, go execute warrants with them because there are always sergeants that have to be with them. Mm-hmm. And then I get this call in January from Internal Affairs Division, and it was a sergeant over admin, and he was like, hey, I need you to come down. Now, it's not voluntary at this point. An assignment in IED is involuntary.
Oh, goodness.
So he just picked up the phone and called and said, hey, I need you to come and sign your paperwork. You're reporting to IED on February the 5th. And I was like, sir? And he's like, I need you to come and sign your paperwork today because it needs to go to the committee because you're coming to IED on February the 5th. And I was a young sergeant, and I knew this sergeant. I knew his reputation. I didn't know him personally. Right. And I was like, yes, sir. I didn't know what to say. And so I hung up the phone. I ran around the corner of my lieutenant, and I was like, hey, I just got a call from IED. They told me to come sign my paperwork, and I was going on February 5th. And she was like, oh, no, ma'am, you're not going to IED. We need you here. And I was like, yeah, right? So she was like, I'm going to write a letter. I'm going to write a letter. So, I'm going to write a letter to the chief.
Yes.
So you don't have to go to IED because we need you right here. Yes, ma'am. I appreciate that. But in the meantime, I had to go sign that paperwork because I didn't want to be insubordinate. So I went and signed the paperwork, and she sent up her letter. And a couple of days later, it came back denied. She's going to IED. Ooh. And so I happened to be in a parking lot at Southeast Division. This is where our child sexual abuse was. And I ran into a gentleman who had a lot of experience and who was a veteran sergeant that I didn't really know well. I just knew of him. And he stopped me and he said, hey, I understand you're trying to run from IED. And I was like, well, yeah, I don't want to go to ID. He said, let me tell you something. He says, you have the opportunity to go far in this organization. He said, and to do that, you need to see the good, the bad, and the ugly. He said, and ID is going to show you that.
Yep.
He said, don't run from it. He said, it's not a bad assignment, right? And what I learned was it put me in a position to be able to investigate cases to help officers save their jobs if they were in the right? But it also put me in the position to make sure that I conducted thorough investigations to remove people from the department that was tarnishing the badge.
Yes.
So, you know, it
Tarnishing
turned
the
it out to
badge.
be a really rewarding position, and it helped to develop me. I mean, my whole path really is what helped to develop me to do the job that I'm doing today. So I really, really appreciated that experience, both in reactive and proactive IED.
So is there a in doing that internal affairs? Did I say it right?
Yes, internal affairs.
Man, are you looked at from your fellow officers or folks in law enforcement? Kind of.
So
I don't know.
I tell you what, because people feel like, oh, you're going to IED, well, I can't talk to you anymore, you're a snitch. But let me tell you something. If you
That's what I was gonna say.
If you're in
If
a
that's-
department and you have a good reputation of being consistent and fair and having a good work ethic and values, and people, Cheryl's an IED, but she's still Cheryl. I'm
Right.
still gonna be me.
Right.
Right. But if you were selected and you kind of have a reputation for straddling the fence and not making good, then you may, run into people that you considered friends back in the day who go, I don't want to talk to you no more. You an IED, right? Kind of thing, right? I mean, because it happens, and but yeah.
So
people,
if you're in good standing,
Right.
Or
if
if you're suspect, then
if you have a good reputation, typically it doesn't go over that bad. People
Okay.
go, okay, yeah, I can see why they picked Cheryl to go to IED, right?
Right.
she's gonna get us right.
Yeah, right. Or
exactly.
it's not. I would rather her not be there because I telling what they're gonna do to her while she there, right? They might corrupt her a bit, but at the same time, you grew up with me in an organization, and you know the type of person that I am, right? So. But yeah, you still get that. You still get that. Nobody really wants to go to ID because I don't want to be considered that person, and nobody don't want to hang around no more.
Exactly.
That's what I was
Because
gonna
y'all
say.
don't make no, whatever decisions I make, it's gonna be scrutinized and that kind of
Exactly.
stuff.
If I say something
Yeah,
wrong,
I'm gonna say something
accidentally,
wrong. You're gonna drop an ID command, and that's really not the case, right? If you violate department policy or the law, then you've tied my hands, right?
Exactly.
I would do that if I wasn't an ID, right?
Right.
I'd have an obligation to be able
Exactly.
to report.
Hold on,
So-
speak to that. Speak to that, would you? Like that standard right there.
Absolutely. I mean, that's part of changing the perception of policing right now. We're talking
Exactly.
about the blue wall of silence,
Yeah.
right? That means that we're allowing things to happen that we know about that we're not reporting because we don't want to be a snitch or we don't want to get somebody in trouble or we don't want to be involved. And right now, it's just stuff that we're something that we're really trying to provide our officers the courage to be able to step in and intervene and to like stop these behaviors so that it can help change the perception of policing.
Right.
So we can show people there's really not a blue wall of silence and that we don't, bad cops don't like, I mean, good cops don't like bad cops.
Exactly.
Okay.
Because
That's
it tarnishes the bad.
That's right.
So we have to be able to give our officers the courage to be able to step in. I don't care if it's a supervisor or one of their colleagues to say, hey, this is not right. What you're doing is wrong, right? And I have an obligation to report what has happened,
Exactly.
right? Or if you can catch it beforehand, intervene and say, hey, man, if you see somebody with a hot head and things may be getting out of hand, you can go and intervene. Say, I got it. You step to the side. I got it, right?
Yeah.
And it's just part of our obligations as police officers because the sanctity of life is what's important.
Exactly.
Right. And then our reputation. I don't care if it's not dealing with a person, if it may be dealing with property or your behavior on or off duty. I mean, unfortunately, we're going to be, judged by whatever we do on duty and whatever we do off duty.
Exactly.
So it's just so important now that we equip our officers with the tools that they need to intervene when they can, right? Because that helps protect our reputation and it helps protect the sanctity of this badge that we wear.
That's right.
Man,
So,
amen
yeah.
to that.
Yes.
Would you say for the folks that don't, they're not from law enforcement, would you say that there are times where there's cultures that that make within the department or the agency that sometimes make it hard to. I know this sounds crazy, but I know it's just part of us being human, right? Where sometimes there might be a culture of not saying, snitching, or I don't want to be that person to have to.
Absolutely.
You know, really?
Absolutely. And things have changed over the course of my 30 years in law enforcement. But initially, you don't want to be that person that's the you rather turn your back and say, "Hey, I didn't see anything," or "I wasn't involved," or "I don't remember."
So hold on.
Because this is what you think happens. It's like, man, if they think that I'm a snitch, if I need to a backup on a call, they're not going to show up, right? Regardless of if you're involved in that behavior or not involved in that behavior, you're worried about this following you the rest of your career, right? So that's why it's important that we start creating cultures where it's okay to correct behavior before it even makes it to a supervisor.
Exactly.
So,
right?
So this same tension, right? This is really neat for me to discover, because the same tension we have from the rest of the community is, oh, we're not going to say nothing because I don't want to be looked at a certain way. You know, then we throw the word snitch in there, and like, man, I don't want to be looked at as a snitch.
Right.
And so when you guys are asking us for help, we're like, man, I ain't finna be helping the police. I ain't finna snitch,
Right?
you know, because I got to live in this community.
Exactly.
When they leave, I'm still here.
I'm still here.
You know,
That's right.
And so there's a culture there too, right?
Exactly.
And I think the culture is it has no respecter of different folks. It's people are people. And so we have that type of tension no matter where we're at. So I think this is really neat to look at both sides, right, of the community and say, man, just because we're human, we have that tension. And it can be tough.
It can be tough.
What the negative peer pressure or in the cases we want, positive peer pressure, right? To where like, no, I need to do the right thing because it's the right thing to do, but it's not popular and maybe I'm going to lose friends, right? Which is what everyone deals with, right?
Yeah.
If the tension is if I say something is going to offend and hurt and even a family member, or they're going to look at me differently, and all those different things. So it's interesting to hear this side of the fence, if I could say it that way, coming out this tribe, and I think it's really neat because as leaders in the community, we are dehumanized.
Yes.
Right? And if you're a leader, a pastor, I'm speaking from a clergy point of view, is you're looked at as, it don't matter if you have a suit on or a tie, or if you're in the church building, or if you're it don't matter where you're at HEB, everybody looks at you with that same expectation. And unfortunately, as law enforcement and clergy, I can see there's a lot of stuff that we can relate with each other on, is that somehow, some way, we are to have an S on our chest.
Yes.
And so we're not humanized, we're dehumanized. Yes. And so it's what they expect from us, but it's not what we expect from them. Like, it's not an even playing field, unfortunately. But we're looking to change that and say, hey, look, Chief Sheryl, she's human.
Yeah.
You're somebody's aunt, somebody's sister, so on and so forth, somebody's daughter, and it keeps going. And same thing for Chief Williams. And I think that as we work together, part of it is being able to hear our story and say, man, we're all human. Look,
that's it.
And we have the same tension, same stuff we got to deal with. Because I think a lot of the times when we are saying in an effort as people from the community that's not in law enforcement, we will say and demand, and rightfully so at times the intention is, but we'll say, hey, hold people accountable.
Right.
And that's and while we're saying that, we don't do it.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
And so we have expectations on you guys to do. You better do it.
Yes.
But don't let the measuring stick come out on our side, because then we got crickets going on. We're quiet. Like,
of course.
No.
Like, no, I'm not gonna say nothing. No,
I ain't a leader, and that kind of stuff. But really, you're a leader in your own home, in your community, and those kind of things. And so we all have to be an example. So doing the right thing, because people are hear this right now. I know, they'll look at it. That's right. She better do the right thing. She's a law enforcement, and you better. And that's exactly what we're trying to. And it is, and rightfully so.
And rightfully so.
However, it goes back to us as we're saying, well, unto us too.
How
Right.
much control could you have had over somebody else's decision before we even got called in?
Right.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Where could you have intervened to
Yes.
stop a behavior,
Yes.
or to go tell a parent, or to tell somebody to keep somebody out of trouble
Yes.
before it
Exactly.
even makes it to the
Yes.
police? So
And
it's all of our responsibility. You're
How
right.
can we all make
How
the
can we all
right
make the
decision?
right decision?
No matter how much there's tension, no
right.
matter how we feel people may look at us because of doing the right thing.
Right.
If we all partner together and just do the right thing, because it's the right thing to do, no matter your feelings, and just do the right thing, we can make a difference.
Well, we have to have those intentional encounters.
Yes.
We have to be intentional.
Amen.
And that's a lot of it. Is, like you said, Chief, I see everything that you do, but you're not supposed to see what I do.
That's right.
When that door closes, now when your integrity comes into question, what are you going to do?
That's right.
I see you out there walking the walk, and I mean, your chest stuck out, and you're just being so proud and so bold and so brave, just being able to, talk to people and steer them the right direction. But you're broken.
What about you?
Yeah, you're broken. I mean, you're being a hypocrite.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't be a hypocrite, especially not in this job, because everyone is looking to see what we are doing wrong, or even just what they perceive is wrong. Everyone's a critic. Everyone is a critic.
And we just have to have the courage and create an environment where it's okay
Yes.
for our officers to feel comfortable coming forth to tell the truth. There's nothing that I hate more than an officer to get in trouble and get fired, and then I hear a group of officers go, "I knew that was going to happen.
Yes.
I knew he was going to get." If you knew that your brother was falling or making some bad decisions, why didn't you intervene? Why did it
Exactly.
make it to a point to where he lost his job, right? What did you do to try to help your colleague save
for
his
real.
career? Yeah.
Exactly.
No, for real. That's one thing I can't stand when people, if you knew, why didn't you intervene or try to help him? This is
right.
somebody you worked with so.
This guy's at a crossroad
Yeah.
in his life, and because of your omission, you let him take the wrong
Yeah.
cross.
Yeah.
Took the
No,
wrong road.
I feel the same way. Coming from where I come from, I share a similar frustration. Is when our good folks from our community, or even abroad, when I'll see them, saying free, so and so, and a lot of me will be like, well, I understand, where they're coming from,
Right.
but it's like, man, that person needed some support. Unfortunately, where I come from, we'll support our folks in the wrong direction. And it's good till it's not.
Right.
And then when it's not, we'll say, oh, free so-and-so. And I'm like, no, you sat there and supported them in what they were doing by receiving whatever you were receiving,
Right.
by participating, all that. So it's not free so-and-so. I mean,
Right.
yeah, I get it, but it's before that, how can they not even get in that situation? What can we
Right.
do to make a difference,
That's right.
to say something and not what's the word? Pacify unhealthy behaviors, right? Enable unhealthy behaviors.
Right.
And so that's my frustration on this end is like, man, how can we make a difference before it happens, right?
That's right.
And don't get me wrong, there are folks out in the community that are trying to do
Yes,
exactly that. And it's
exactly.
tough, right? Just
Exactly.
like I know it's tough
Just
on y'all's
it's
end.
tough internally
Right.
with us too.
Yes, exactly. But the frustration comes when sometimes I know too much, and I'm like, man, where were you at before you said free so and so? And not only that, part of it is like, why are we going to free them? That's the life that we chose when we're doing what we're doing. Because I was a part of that, right? It's like ain't no free nothing. Hey, this is what
It's
I
the
was.
price you pay. It's consequences for your action.
I've always
right.
heard a saying that goes, if you keep campaigning, you're going to eventually get elected. And so, to me, it's like, man, I'm out here campaigning.
Right.
I'm about this, that, and the other. And well, okay, eventually you're going to get what you want. And when you get it, then, I mean, there's no backpedaling. Just stand with 10 toes down and face the consequences of the music that you were dancing to. And so, anyway, so as you were talking about a frustration, that's kind of my frustration.
Okay, I get it. I
Right.
totally get it.
Anyway, so you moved on from.
So I promoted out of Internal Affairs Division to lieutenant, to the rank of lieutenant, and then went back to child sexual abuse for a little bit, and then went to the training academy where I had in-service training because all officers had to get 40 hours a year of in-service training. So we developed the courses and put the courses on the schedule and all that. And After being a lieutenant for 2 years, I was eligible to take the commander's exam. Took the commander's exam, promoted to commander. And it was as a commander that I had an opportunity to really start implementing some prevention and intervention work and increasing the number of positive interactions that we had with our communities. And so, because I had my own station and it's pretty much my own little city.
Yeah, there you go.
And I had Midtown, I had Southeast. If anybody's familiar with Third Ward, I had Third Ward.
Oh, wow,
I had
yeah.
the East End.
Okay.
And so I had my own little city. So we did backpack, back to school drives. We did trunk or treat. Anytime we can invite the community into our building and have a positive interaction before they had to interact with us any other kind of way, just were opportunities for us, right? And don't get me wrong, we have to fight a lot of crime at South Central, but at the same time, it comes full circle, right? We have a responsibility. Our success is not measured on the amount of arrests we make; it's measured on the reduction of crime. If you ask me, right?
Yes.
And that's some Sir Robert Peel stuff from back in the 1800s.
Yep.
The founder of policing. I mean, that's just police work. That's the nature of police work. Prevention and intervention, right?
Yes.
Can you speak to that, what you just said about the 1800s a little bit?
Yeah, so Sir Robert Peel is the founder of policing, right? And he had all of these policing principles. And one of the principles was that the success of being in law enforcement is not the number of arrests we make, but the reduction of crime. That's how we should measure our success, by the reduction of crime, not just the people and the bodies that we're putting in jail, right? He had many other principles too, but that's one of the ones that's always stuck with me.
Yes. Me too.
And so, it's not always about, because I'm going to be honest with you, when I first became a police officer, I was about putting everybody in jail.
Don't you know?
I would have put my mama in jail. And my mama knew it. God rest her soul.
Yep.
I would have been crying to go get her out, but if she broke the law, I was going to have to take her to jail, right? Yeah. But that was me. But again, I matured as a police officer and started realizing that arresting my way out wasn't the answer.
Right.
Now, don't get me wrong. There are some people who are just not going to do right. Prevention and intervention is not going to matter to them, and they're going to have to pay the price and be held accountable. But it's just an important part of police work. It comes full circle. As police officers, we have to be willing to take a holistic approach to crime prevention and public safety, and that involves prevention, intervention, and apprehension.
Right.
So that's what, as a commander,
Thanks for sharing that.
yeah, absolutely. As a commander, that's what I started focusing on. And after being a commander for 11 months, I got a phone call to be appointed to assistant chief, and I didn't turn that down. Took that assistant chief's job.
Didn't run from that one.
No, not at all. Not at all. I could not, right? But at the same time, I tell you what. So I spent 14 years as a police officer. I promoted to sergeant. I was a sergeant for 7 years before I promoted to lieutenant, right? And a lot of people think that's in Houston. That's in Houston. So I had 21 years on the department when I promoted to lieutenant, because a lot of people think, you promote quickly. You get 5 years on, take the sergeant's exam. 2 years later, you promote to lieutenant. 2 years later, you promote to commander. But that didn't work for me. I was good having all of that experience as a police officer and being able to see what police officers see and feeling what police officers and first-line supervisors feel. Right. So when I made it to that lieutenant rank, my work spoke for itself. As a commander, it spoke for itself. And within 3 years, I promoted 3 times. I had always had aspirations of being an assistant chief, and that's all I wanted to do was be an assistant chief. And I wanted to be an assistant chief for one reason, because as a rookie police officer, I was in roll call one day, and this gentleman came in, and he had on his little stars on his uniform, and he leaned against the wall, and I asked one of my colleagues, I was like, who is this guy? And they were like, that's our assistant chief. And I was like, man, he was rude. He didn't speak. He didn't ask us how we were doing. He didn't even engage with us, right? I said, you know what? One day I'm going to be an assistant chief, and I'm going to show people you can still have a personality and be a chief, right?
That's right.
So it was a little vain, but that was the reason I wanted to be a chief. And I wanted to be a chief to show people that I could still be Sheryl and be a chief, right? And so had an opportunity to promote to assistant chief. I was appointed by Chief Art Acevedo and was an assistant chief for 3.5 years, and got a phone call about the job in Waco, and never saw myself as a chief, I hadn't been thinking about chief's jobs yet, and got a phone call from one of our former presidents from our police union. And he was like, hey, I got a call from Waco, and they're looking for a police chief, and these are the things that they're looking for, and it's the work that you're doing now. I think it's a good opportunity for you. And I was like, oh, that's sweet. And he was like, are you thinking about being a chief? And I was like, no, I've only been an assistant chief for 3.5 years. So I kind of minimized myself, like I ain't ready. And he was like, well, when you do start looking, are you going to look in the Houston area? And I was like, absolutely. My family is here, and there are so many police agencies here. So yeah, I'm not leaving Houston. So he was like, okay. He said, well, sounds like a good opportunity. I told them I'd call you. I did what I was supposed to do. So the rest is up to you. And I was like, oh, okay, that's sweet. I hung up the phone and I thought to myself, oh, that's sweet. Ray thinks I can be a chief. That's so sweet, right? But I am not going to Waco. I've only been to Waco one time. I'm not going to Waco. And so for about 2 hours, I'm a person of faith. So the Holy Spirit just kind of nudged at me for about 2 hours. And until I literally said out loud, okay, I'll go look. It's like, just go look. Just go look. Go look at the character profile. Just go look.
Right.
And I literally said out loud, okay, I'll go look. And went out there and Googled it and found it. And every bullet point, I was like, man, I could do that. Or, I'm already doing that, right? And this is the work that I'm doing. And all of a sudden I thought, I can be chief, right?
There you go.
And went home, called my sisters, and got them on a 3-way and told them I was thinking about doing this, and got the sister questions. And one of them finally said, hey, let's pray about it, because, they were like 3 hours, and how much are they paying? And, and so we prayed about it, and I started the process, and here I am. And the whole time I just prayed, God, if it's your will, I want to be there. If it's not your will, then I don't want to be there.
That's right.
So I know that if it's your will, you got me. And I can honestly say he has been faithful in these past 2.5 years. I'm still having the time of my life. And I work for a great agency with great officers. And this is a great city who has embraced me and are willing to work with us to address public safety in the city of Waco. And it's just been a blessing.
Amen. When we sit and talk at times, and then I'll hear you when you're interviewed, you talk about relational policing. And I think you corrected me one time because I said I was talking about community policing, and you corrected me because you said, hold on, there's a difference.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, so can you speak to that?
So let's talk about that. So community policing is when you involve the community in problem-solving activities, right?
Okay.
You've identified a problem, and you work with the community to solve the problem, right? Okay. Relational policing involves building relationships and that trust to even partner with somebody to handle problems and address issues and to solve problems, right? And so when we're talking about relational policing, and this is a concept that was brought to the Houston Police Department by Chief Acevedo, right?
Oh, wow.
So Chief Acevedo brought this concept. He did a video when he first got there. He talked about relational policing, and I just clung on to it. And I was like, Chief, I said, you got something here with this relational policing. We need to brand this, right? So he let me go out and kind of brand it. And next thing you know, I was leaving, coming to Waco. And I told him, hey, relational policing is going with me to Waco. And he was like, hey, relational policing needs to be everywhere. And he's exactly correct. So there's a acronym to relational policing, and it spells TREAT, TREEAT, right? And it stands for transparency, respect, engagement, building emotional capital, and accountability. And all of that builds the last T, which is trust. Right. So relational policing is about building trust. Community policing is about solving problems, building trust in relationships and relational policing, and then solving problems in community policing. Yeah. So.
Okay. So how do we do that? How are we doing that here?
So I was very, very fortunate when I got here to learn that we had already had positions for 5 officers for a neighborhood engagement team. And that's particularly the role of our neighborhood engagement team, but it's a role for all of our police officers, because every encounter that we have with our public, whether we're making an arrest or responding to a calls for service, is an opportunity for us to build trust in our communities. Every contact, if I'm sitting at lunch and somebody comes over and talks to me, that's an opportunity to me to build trust. If I am at the grocery store in my shorts and my ball cap, and somebody comes up to me and talk to me, that's an opportunity for me to build trust, because like you said, as public figures on duty and off duty, we're held to a different standard, right? So I can't be a different one way off duty and then be another way on duty, right?
That's it.
So what you see with me is authentic and genuine. I'm gonna give you what I got, right? Because if I'm being myself, I don't have to pretend to be nobody else and have to remember how I was trying to be when I was with you,
now.
Right? So yeah,
Ain't no undercover going on.
Ain't no undercover going on right there. Ain't no undercover going on. It's for real. What you get, and and I'm human, right? And I make mistakes too. I'm not perfect. But I do believe that every contact that we make as police officers with our community is important, and it's an opportunity for us to build trust. But our neighborhood engagement team are actually proactive in doing that with the types of events that they're putting on. A community opportunity event that we just put on a couple of weeks ago. And to me, that's an opportunity for us. That was our opportunity to show people that we care about their well-being and their future, because it was specifically for those that are just as involved. It's to offer you another way out. We had vendors there that were offering jobs, that will offer jobs to people who were just as involved, right? We had educational opportunities if you wanted to go back and get your GED. The medical guys were out there to help with testing and, everything that you need to be a whole person and contribute positively to this society was there, right? And that's our opportunity at prevention and intervention. Of course, we got Back to School Bash coming up at the end of July. We do Trunk or Treat, and we partnered last year with Waco ISD, and it was fantastic. Great turnout. So
I heard that was
great
a hit.
location. It was. And we got good parking. We had plenty of space for our event next year. Hopefully, we'll have more people out there giving up candy. Yeah, it was fantastic, and that's one of the things that I love about the Waco community. When I first got here, everybody's reaching out. Whatever you need, Chief. Whatever you need, Chief. And nobody has ceased to deliver. Everybody has delivered, right? And we do things bigger and better every time. Amen. And so my team is just, patrol, investigation, support. When I hand them an assignment, they just go above and beyond whatever I ask or imagine. So I'm very, very proud to be their chief.
I know one thing that I can say, with this relation building is ever since she's come in, the relationship that our two police departments have really, really grown. Okay, those relationships have really grown with ever since she's come in. Resources that they have, resources at my disposal. We're a small agency, and a lot of the resources that they have, we just don't have those resources. And it's nothing for me to grab my phone and to call any of their specialized units and say, hey, I need. Wow. They're right there. They're right there. Yeah. No questions asked. Okay, the only question, where are you? Where do you need me to be? Those are the questions they're asking. But anything, and with, the crimes against children, that unit, we work a lot with them because, of course, our clientele are children. And so those guys, they work with us, and they steer us down the right path, with not only prosecuting the ones that deserve to be prosecuted, but also helping the ones that need that help to get out of that situation that they're in.
So 15,000?
Yes. 15,000 students.
Students, wow. and then in our city, how many?
140,000.
140,000.
Yeah.
Wow. So you have the opportunity to engage with the non-knucklehead folks and the knucklehead folks within 140,000.
140,000 covering 100 square miles. Yes, sir.
Wow.
Yes, sir, we do.
Isn't that something?
That is something. That's something. That's I'll tell you, as being a civilian here in the city of Waco and a pastor in this city, I've never experienced my whole life when I wasn't in clergy and even now the type of collaborative efforts that I see now. In fact, I've been doing outreach type of events and stuff for a long time, and there were some successful ones for sure. But at the community opportunity
event, the
Co. Let me tell you, that was a proud moment as a a person that's been here all my life, because I've seen fellow individuals that are out there in the community, just regular folks to pastors to you name it, agencies were out there that are out there on their own doing stuff now coming together. It was the first time I've ever seen that many. I think we had over 100 vendors. Is that right?
Yeah, it was just under 100 vendors.
And so they were there, and I've never experienced that type of collaborative come together. There's not just churches, it's not just some agencies, but it was a holistic approach. And then not only that, it just so happened that the city was leading that thing, and you guys in particular, the police department were spearheading that, and to see all the law enforcement, and then that's all great, right? When you do all those things, and it's an effort, right? And praise God for that. And those are great, but what's even more greater is when you have the target audience actually show up.
That's right.
And for me, it's a miracle, and it's a beautiful, memorable moment for me. And I think it's a part of history here in our city to be able to witness it firsthand. That, oh my goodness, and I was taking pictures with so many people that I knew and hadn't seen in a long time, and these are people that. That I love and care about that normally would not be at such an event, and there they were because of our city coming together, and you guys and you leading as the leader of the agency there. What a blessing you are to our city, and thank you for your heart that you have for people in general, no matter where you're at. And how you're using those gifts and those gifts and those abilities here in our city.
Yes.
And you're not you're not letting up on doing that. When you say you're giving us your all, you are doing that, and we get to see the fruit of it. And I know it's not easy, and nothing is, and especially if you call yourself a leader in any kind of thing, no matter what it is, it's tough. It comes with the good, bad, and the ugly, as you say. And a lot of times, unfortunately, we hear. Just because of the way society is, you'll hear the bad that you have to deal with, but not so much the good. And here on this platform, we're here to talk about the good, and we will continue to, as we'll continue to talk about this relational policing, and not just talk about it. By the way, this is what's being
Be about it.
Yeah,
this is
it's an action.
Yes, because this get together right here is a result of what's already happening.
That's right.
We're not starting this as our first episode because it's something we want to do. We're talking about doing something that's already been done, and it's because of who we are individually and who we're willing to be collectively. And so, could you speak on the importance of this visual right now of you as a chief, as Chief Williams there, and then someone like me who's an ex-convict turned pastor, coming together in your mind, in your heart. Why is that a big deal?
So one of my other primary goals when I became chief here at the city of Waco was that we became a model city for public safety and police community relationships. That was one of my visions. And if you go back to day one, me being sworn in, I said that. And if that's my vision, I feel like that's what God has me here to do. And it's going to require that we're going to extend some grace. It requires that we extend grace to people who may have had criminal histories and have changed their lives around, because we can't label people and judge people by their past. That's right. If somebody has already been held accountable, then you give them the benefit of the doubt. And if something else happens, then, of course, they have to be held accountable again. But if somebody paid their debt to society and are contributing to society, we shouldn't shut people out.
That's right.
And when we make mistakes, because we are human too, I tell our community all the time that when I'm out and about, that we are human beings too. A lot of the calls that we're responding to each and every day, some of those same things are going on in our own households.
That's right.
So we're human beings, right? And so when we make a mistake, we hope to be extended some grace, and you allow me an opportunity to fix it, right? To hold somebody accountable or change policy if policy needs to be changed, right? So we have to be a city willing to do that and willing to see each other for who we are, And that's how these relationships grow and are developed, and how we can do the work that we're doing in this community. People have to put aside egos.
Right.
We got to put aside egos.
Yeah.
And if we're truly doing this work for God and for our city, to make our city a better place, we all have to be on one accord.
Amen.
And making decisions that are best for our city, best for our elderly, best for our kids, best for
Exactly.
businesses in the city of Waco.
That's right.
And that's the hope that I will continue to have.
Yes.
And that's what I will continue to work for each and every day.
And you know,
Talking about.
you bring hope. Even you lead in bringing hope and bless the efforts as an agency to want to bring hope to those that are, I call the knuckleheads. You know, great people. They're just making some unhealthy decisions. And can we finish with that? Talking about the efforts that you guys are putting together. I know about them, but not everybody does. On even helping those that you're having to arrest the most. And
So, and with that, those people that we come in contact with more frequently, and then individuals who may be going through mental crisis and how we can help them. We have a social resource coordinator on our team now who is trying to mitigate some of our contact with individuals who have mental health issues. We have of course, our neighborhood engagement team, and they're being proactive day to day and going to neighborhood associations. We have our new NIDOS program where we're trying to build trust in our Hispanic communities, our English as a second language communities, to build trust, right? Because we have concerns in those communities where people think that the first thing we want to do is ask them their immigration status. When if you call the police and there's a crime that's been committed, that's not what we care about. We care about getting the person apprehended who committed the crime. That is our primary. Yeah, we're trying to. Well, if we need to make an arrest, we make that arrest and give those citizens the help that they need, and not be concerned about that. Now, if we arrest you, we have a right to arrest you. We have a right to ask you. But we're not intentionally just going out. I don't have the staff or the time to be going out asking people what their immigration status is and put them in jail. That's not what we do. But we want to make sure that we build enough trust in our communities, in our Hispanic community, our Spanish-speaking communities, that they don't feel like they have to be victimized and can't call the police, right? We want them to be able to trust us so that we can, attend to their needs and make arrests. And, of course, we have our events that we host, our community opportunity event. It won't be come around again until next year, but we have our upcoming back to school event. We also have our trunk or treat event that we do in the fall. We have our Citizens Police Academy that was ongoing way before I got here. We have our Explorers program, just our Junior Police Academy, which just ended. There are just many opportunities for our communities to come in and get involved and to learn more about their police department and to join us at work. You go through the Citizens Police Academy. We have a Citizens Police Academy Alumni Association.
Oh, wow.
They do a lot of volunteer work for us and support us at a lot of our events. And it's just so much. I go into the schools and read, and people invite me to come and speak at different engagements and different events. I welcome that opportunity because it just gives me an opportunity to humanize who I am and tell you a little bit about myself, right, and where I came from, and you get to see me as a person and not a police officer, right? So those are some of the things we're doing.
Well, thank you.
One thing, I'd like to plug someone.
Yeah.
Sophie Martinez.
Absolutely.
Fabulous.
Oh, yeah.
With the kiddos.
Yep.
Let me tell you something. This lady is awesome.
Yes, she
She
is.
does a
Yes, she is.
fantastic job.
Yes.
And that's someone, as a matter of fact, we had a Crime Stoppers luncheon the other day. And running Crime Stoppers is huge. It's huge. It's a lot of responsibility that comes with that, with all of the reporting that you have to do. This lady has taken on all of that reporting for the entire county and even neighboring counties. You hear me? And she has it fixed where all we have to do is have a QR code. You can scan that QR code and you're still anonymous. Everything You don't have to worry about anyone knowing your identity or anything. And for all of us smaller agencies who don't have the manpower to be able to run this program, she has taken lead and is doing this for everyone. And I think that's an awesome thing. Those are the type of people that
Yes.
Chief Victorian have.
She is absolutely fantastic. That role was vacant. She's doing her job in addition to Crime Stoppers. That wasn't really her assignment,
right.
but it became vacant, and she knew that there was a need for somebody to step in, and she stepped in, and she's doing an amazing job. I love Sophie.
Yes, that's
Well-
how you bridge that gap.
Yeah.
No, that's right. And thank you, Chief, for extending the grace of God
Yes.
to the law enforcement agency, to the folks that you guys have to engage with, because I've personally witnessed it, and it's a beautiful thing to just be a part of and to be with like-minded individuals to puzzle in. It's an honor because I see the culture and the people I come from. I see y'all extending that grace, and we don't always get to see that, but I see it from the top, and that doesn't always happen, unfortunately. And thank you for being that type of leader, because as you and everyone else shows us grace and helps us to be humanized, no matter if we're full of tattoos or been in the penitentiary or whatever it is, you still have the audacity to affirm the dignity in us, the worth of who we are. And may we have that same audacity to then humanize you guys. And, y'all not perfect like we aren't, and y'all need grace like we need grace.
Exactly.
We're all the same. We're people, and we all mess up, and we don't have it right. And there is an expectation, and rightfully so, in leadership. But ultimately, if we can I think that's going to continue to bring hope to our city as we come together and have these type of conversations where, you don't have to fear. Folks don't have to fear people to look like me, with a background from where I come from or y'all's, and we can just peacefully come together and be a blessing to each other, bring peace even when it's difficult, because it is difficult.
Yes, it is.
We're not sitting up here blind to the fact of how hard this is to do. It's not even popular really to do, honestly. Individually and even collectively it's not, but it's what we're gonna do because it's what God has called us to do. And it's just the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us here and joining us out there, first of all, and then joining us here. So with that, thank y'all for tuning in. If you would please don't forget to like, share, comment. Let us know that you're here. If there's an amen, if you're mad about something, put that down too. We want to hear everything. If you're in support of this, would you share it and help us get the word out to other agencies that are out there, other folks that are on the other side of the agencies in whatever city you're in, county, doesn't matter, across the state. We are just trying to come together to bring hope to our city and hopefully help you guys bring hope to yours as well. And where these voices here now have a platform where we can holistically come together and offer that peace and that hope. Talk to you later. Bye.